Hey, what's up everyone? Paul from Grindhouse Funhouse. Record Store Day is back to its traditional self, which means happening one day only, plus a safety net day. These scattered RSD drop days we've experienced these last 2 years are a thing of the past for now. It's back to being scheduled on the third Saturday of April this year, being on the 23rd, just like the vinyl gods intended. They did schedule a RSD Drops Day for June 18, being that these last 6 months have been hard for the vinyl industry to keep up, in that there's so many releases and not enough vinyl pressing plants to meet all the demands. So they're victims of their own success, I guess. So any announced releases intended for April 23rd that were not pressed or shipped on time will be scheduled for June 18th. So here's my annual overview of every vinyl soundtracks that will be available for RSD 2022. 24 releases in all, 13 in North America and 11 in the UK. It's all scores and various artist soundtracks, plus a TV team I included on the list because it's early work from one Johnny Williams, so it was worth mentioning. I'm doing it a bit different this year when it comes to showcasing all these releases. Instead of doing them by dates and places, I decided to separate them into 4 categories. So without further ado, I will start with my favorite movie soundtracks releasing label, which is Varèse Sarabande. In fact, I would be remiss if I did not plug the group I've started a year ago on Facebook, Varèse Sarabande Vinyl Soundtrack Collectors. As of this recording, we're 250 members strong, just geeking out on all the vinyl releases Varèse Sarabande has put out over the last 4 decades. The link is in the description below to join up. And here's 5 new releases you'll be able to discuss and add to your collection. This Varèse Sarabande title is still widely available, so they had to kick it up a notch and turn it into a 2 LP deluxe edition, which gave us 60 minutes of music, which includes previously unreleased film cues, alternates, and outtakes, and a 1963 song Blue Velvet from Bobby Vinton. The liner notes will include new interviews with David Lynch, Angelo Badalamenti, Kyle MacLachlan, and producer Fred Caruso. The cover for this re-release is the original 1986 Italian movie poster art designed by Ennio Ciotti. It's an RSD exclusive release pressed on marbleized blue vinyl and is limited to 4,500 copies. Up next is Mimic, Guillermo del Toro's first big budget movie back in 1997, only had a CD release at the time, so this makes this release its first appearance on vinyl. This is Marco Beltrami's second score in his discography that he worked on right after a little movie called Scream. New artwork was done for this, which has a triptych jacket design displaying the creature's multiple faces. It's an RSD exclusive release coming out June 18th, pressed on green vinyl, and is limited to 3,300 copies. Up next, we have the 1996 comedy Big Night, written and directed by Stanley Tucci and Campbell Scott, that made everyone hungry for delicious Italian foods. This is a various artiste soundtrack chock full of 1950s classic from Rosemary Clooney, Keely Smith, and Louis Prima, whose persona plays a big role in the movie. It's an RSD exclusive coming out June 18, pressed on crystal clear vinyl, and is limited to 2,500 copies. Then we have the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, which came out in 2006, scored by Brian Tyler, and it's the first time it's getting released on vinyl. This 2 LP set is an RSD exclusive release coming out June 18, pressed on orange and black double vinyl with the stenciled fourth side, and is limited to 3,000 copies. And lastly, for Varèse Sarabande releases, we have a 1972 Western starring John Wayne with the Cowboys, scored by living legend John Williams, who turned 90 back in February and still going strong. This 50th anniversary release got the CD Deluxe Edition treatment back in 2018, which got a completely new remix, remastering, and expansion that we're getting here for the first time on vinyl. This 2 LP set is an RSD exclusive release coming out June 18, pressed on gold vinyl, and is limited to 3,000 copies. Alright, up next is the miscellaneous releases category, which is pretty much me not wanting to make too many categories. So the ones not fitting in the other 3 I've made, I'm putting in here. So first up, continuing with Mr. John Williams, who was credited as Johnny Williams at the time this was scored. And it is for the Lost in Space title themes from the hit TV series release, which he scored back in 1965. On side A, you'll get main and end title themes, bumpers, and on side B, you'll get interviews with the show's creator Urban Allen and with cast members. This had a first-time release back on Record Store Day in 2017 as a picture disc from the Space Lab 9 label, and now they're re-releasing it as an RSD limited run regional focus release limited to 950 copies, pressed on purple vinyl. Up next, I would say this vinyl is the most widely available 80s hip-hop soundtracks out there in the wild, and it is for the 1984 Cannon Films classic Breaking. This LP is an RSD first release, meaning you'll get to buy it again later on in the year if you didn't get your hands on it this first time around. It is pressed on clear vinyl, which is the only new thing about this release from the Get On Down label, and is limited to 2,000 copies. The 2009 Zack Snyder directed Watchmen movie is getting reissued once again from Warner Records. Both the score from Tyler Bates and the Varèse RT soundtrack did get a vinyl release back in 2009, and a reissue in 2018 for the score, but with this release you'll get all of it in one packaging. This 3 LP set is an RSD exclusive release coming out June 18. The score is pressed on Dr. Manhattan blue vinyl, and the Varèse RT soundtrack featuring artists like My Chemical Romance, Leonard Cohen, Nat King Cole, and Jimi Hendrix is pressed on smiley face yellow vinyl and is limited to 7,000 copies. Up next is the first UK release on the list. It is a 7-inch release of John Carpenter's Escape from New York main theme. You'll get the main title track on the A side and the bank robbery track on the B side. It is an RSD exclusive release pressed on transparent red vinyl with black splatter, released by Silver Screen, and it is limited to 2,200 copies. Up next is the first time release of the soundtrack for 2002's May, scored by James Luckett. The TerrorVision label is the one releasing it, and they do wonderful work. One of their last release being for the Freddy's Nightmare TV series was just outstanding. It is an RSD exclusive release pressed on a color. Even Ryan from TerrorVision doesn't know what it is yet, but it will be limited to 2,000 copies. St. Vincent played herself in a mockumentary / psychological thriller back in 2020 in the Nowhere Inn. Now here comes the soundtrack release on orange vinyl as a RSD exclusive release and is limited to 4,000 copies from the Loma Vista label. On last November's Black Friday, we got an RSD release of The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and now we're getting another gem from the Wes Anderson filmography, and it is for the Royal Tenenbaums. The score is from one of Wes Anderson's regulars, Mark Mothersbaugh, with a mix of rock songs from the 60s through the 90s, the usual from Wes. This 2 LP set, first time released on vinyl, is an RSD first release, pressed on sky blue and olive green vinyl, in a die-cut sleeve and gatefold jacket, and is limited to an undetermined amount of copies, which is, I'm guessing, a lot. To commemorate the 35th anniversary of the movie and the single, Rhino Record is putting out a 12-inch 5-track EP of Who's That Girl, starring Madge. It'll feature her songs Who's That Girl and Causing a Commotion, and it shall be pressed on opaque red vinyl and not very limited to 15,000 copies. This next soundtrack is from a 2015 British documentary about Scientology titled Louis Theroux, My Scientology Movie, scored by Dan Jones, who will come up again later on at the end of this video. This 2 LP UK release is released by Wave Theory Records. For the first time on vinyl is an RSD exclusive pressed on Sunflower Yellow and Azure Blue vinyl with a pull-out poster included and is limited to 700 copies. The Parallax View, a 1974 political thriller starring Warren Beatty, directed by Alan J. Pakula and scored by Michael Small, got its first vinyl release last year, and Cinema Paradiso, who put it out, is reissuing it already for RSD 2022, but instead of being on white vinyl, this time it's on blue. It is a UK RSD exclusive release and is limited to only 400 copies with the Abraham Lincoln artwork. And last in the miscellaneous release category is for the 1974 The Tamarind Seed, starring Julie Andrews and Omar Sharif. This was scored by one of my favorites, John Barry. There was no plans to ever release it in any format, but is now getting somehow the double LP treatment from Silver Screen, which includes all the major cues used in the film, together with the single Played Again from Wilma Redding. It is a UK RSD exclusive release pressed on red and blue vinyl and is limited to 2,000 copies. Alright, next category is Italian cinema. We simply cannot have a record store day without the maestro himself, Ennio Morricone, having a few of his scores on the list, and this year is no different. He may be gone from our plane of existence, but the man's work, more than 400 scores, will live on and still be released long after all of us are gone. For this record store day, we got 2 French films and 2 spaghetti westerns within one release. On commence avec les films français, First Stop's Sans Mobile Apparent, which translated to Without Apparent Motive, a 1971 French thriller starring Jean-Louis Trintignant. Quartet Records released their version of it last year under the Italian title Senza Movente, and We Want Sounds will release it on June 18th with its original French title, a UK RSD exclusive release pressed on green vinyl. The second Ennio Morricone French movie release is for 1974 Le Trio Infernal, which translates to the Infernal Trio starring Michel Piccoli and Romy Schneider, a UK RSD exclusive release pressed on transparent marble magenta vinyl limited to 499 copies from the Rustblade label. And the last RSD 2022 Morricone release is for a spaghetti western double bill, 1965's Una Pistola per Ringo and Il Ritorno di Ringo, which translates to A Pistol for Ringo and its sequel The Return of Ringo. This is the first vinyl release for both movies. It's a UK RSD exclusive release pressed on clear red vinyl, and it is from the BTF label. Up next we have a Giallo on the menu with 1972's La Dama Rossa uccide sette volte, which translates to The Red Queen Kills 7 Times. This reissue is to celebrate the movie's 50th anniversary. It comes from the Cam Sugar label, scored by Bruno Nicolai. This 2 LP set has been fully remastered from the original tapes, and included are 2 bonus tracks, one of which was previously unreleased and is limited to 1,500 copies. And the last release in the Italian cinema category is for L'uomo dagli occhiali a specchio, which translates to The Man with Mirror Glasses, which is a 2-part TV movie that aired back in 1975. Directed by Mariano Foglietti, who was a former collaborator of Dario Argento in Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Scored by Sandro Brunolini, it is a fusion of rock, pop, jazz, classical, and symphonic music, with some urban funk added to the mix. It is a UK RSD exclusive release pressed on clear transparent vinyl from the BTF label. And for my final category, I wanted to save the best for last and feature my top 3 RSD 2022 releases I'm looking forward to the most to add to my collection. First up being a Tangerine Dream score that's having its first release of any kind. It is for the 1981's Strange Behavior, also known as Dead Kids, a slasher movie starring Michael Murphy and Louise Fletcher that was on the Section 3 list of the Video Nasties, which now makes me very curious to see it. This is the other release from TerraVision for this record store day, a score that's been coveted for many years from Tangerine Dream's fame, and now they're getting their wish. It is an RSD exclusive release and is limited to 5,000 copies. One of the better action horror hybrid cat and mouse role thriller from the 80s. It is 1986 The Hitcher, starring the always interesting Rutger Hauer, C. Thomas Howell, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. This was an early score from Mark Isham, who's churned out on average 3 scores a year for the last 40 years. He's got quite the varied discography. It is a UK RSD exclusive release from Silva Screen, who's first put out the score on CD back in 1992. And this is the first time it's making its appearance on vinyl. Pressed on turquoise colored vinyl, this numbered pressing is limited to 2,000 copies. And last but certainly not least for this record store day, it is for the 2000 meta horror movie starring John Malkovich and William Dafoe playing Max Schreck, who plays Count Orlok, to Malkovich's William Murnau, the director of Nosferatu in Shadow of the Vampire. This was Dan Jones' first score. He was brought up earlier for his score for Louis Theroux, My Scientology Movie. I love this score. I've played it many times over the years, a very underrated score that no one is really talking about. To me, this was the biggest surprise, getting this on vinyl for the first time. It is a UK RSD exclusive release from Wave Theory Records, coming out on June 18th, and is limited to only 500 copies. So I'll have to hustle to get my precious hand on a copy of my very own. Alright, so that is it for this complete list of vinyl soundtracks available on Record Store Day 2022 and its RSD Drops Day on June 18th. Go visit all my socials at Grindhouse Funhouse. In the comment section below, let me know what soundtracks you're excited to get, what's the one that's on top of your list. I am curious to know what y'all be buying. More vinyl soundtrack related videos coming up soon, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll say to you, ciao bye for now.